Here's what you're going to get from today's episode. Last night, I had drinks and dinner with a friend who's a software engineer at the New York Times. And he throws tech events all around New York City. And he was telling me about how all the big tech companies want to hire him. He's hot. He's hot stuff. And he shared with me how he became hot stuff. And I'm going to share that. I'm going to share some other stuff that we talked about as well. And then I'm going to share 3 books that can help make people into somebody who is more desired rather than somebody who sells themselves. 3 books that have helped me a lot. Books that this person likes. That honestly a lot of people like. Because I don't think we want to sell ourselves. I think we want people to come to us. We want to be the people in demand. And that's what this guy has done. And right now he's a software engineer at the New York Times. He could go wherever he wants. So this is episode 22 of The Edward Show. Holy moly. 22 episodes. I've done this for 3 weeks now. What? I can't believe I have done my daily podcast for 3 weeks. I'm coming from a MasterCard event this afternoon. I was at this event at the MasterCard offices, and the offices are very nice. And I met a lot of people. And then you know what I did? I left to come back home and record this because I have plans in 2.5 hours and I want to get this podcast. I never miss a day. Consistency is everything. I thought about calling this podcast a consistency podcast. I think that'd be a great name as well. Consistency is, but I don't talk about consistency on every episode, but consistency is everything. And if there's one thing I am, 2 things. I'm consistent, but also I would say I have integrity. Integrity is very important. But consistency is so important. Consistency is part of integrity. You say you're going to do something and you do it. And that's what I'm doing. I said I'm going to do a daily podcast and I'm doing it every day. Because I'm getting better. My episodes are getting better. I'm learning a lot. More opportunities are presenting themselves to me every day. That's what happens when you're consistent. And I can't wait to put in, I have a whole big funnel. I have like an SEO funnel, a search engine optimization funnel that I want to build out for this podcast. And I'm so hyped to do that. And everything builds off each other. Everything builds off itself. And you just get stronger as you do it more. At least with this podcast, that's the case. So I'm very hyped. Last night I went out with my friend, and he throws these events around New York City called Tech and Beer. He's been throwing them for 3 to 4 years. He just started throwing AI events. He's a software engineer right now. He's at the New York Times. How did I meet him? I met him. I was going to go to one of his events and I RSVP'd and then I wasn't able to make it that night. And so I messaged him on LinkedIn and I said, the event you're throwing looks really cool. I RSVP'd. Sorry that I will not be able to show. Because I throw events myself and I know that if somebody RSVPs and they can't come, you kind of want to know because you want to have an accurate sense of how many people are going to show up. Maybe it's like booked up and then you can free up another spot. But also, the event that he was throwing was cool and he looked like a cool guy. And so I sent him a message and he's like, it's all good. We're doing this event on this day. And then the event that he was throwing looked relevant to me. And I actually asked him if I could speak. And we had a call to talk about it and just ended up really hitting it off because he's throwing these AI events now and he's throwing these tech and beer events. And I ran the biggest blockchain meetup in the world. And so it was like this huge knowledge share. And he's here in New York. And we hit it off. And he's like, hey, let's have dinner. And I'm like, yeah, let's have dinner. And that's what we did last night. We met up next to Koreatown here in New York. And there was a 90-minute wait for the Michelin ramen place that we were going to go to. So we went to Koreatown, which is really just one street in New York City. People don't really know that because it's called Koreatown, but it's just one street. We went to crowded Koreatown. We went to this bar and we split a bottle of soju, and we were having a nice time. Then we had some delicious ramen at this place, and we had some great conversations. So this is something that I found. This is just a side note. But when I was talking to a guy who was leading Bloomberg's engineering team for the Bloomberg publication, he was very interested in search engine optimization. And this guy as well, software engineer at the New York Times, very interested in SEO. We had a great conversation about SEO. He's very fascinated by it because there's a lot of things that publishers, even big ones, do wrong with SEO. Like they don't have their sitemap set up properly. So it's some tech stuff, but that was a cool conversation. But I think the coolest part, and the part that I want to share, is how he said he can just get a job anywhere. And it's because of these meetups. These meetups show that he's passionate. These meetups show that he's smart. These meetups show that he's a go-getter. These are all qualities that employers want. By hiring him, you're also hiring a brand ambassador. These meetups demonstrate that he'd be a great addition to a company. He said he was thinking about living in another country, perhaps, but he's built up this incredible network here in New York by doing these meetups, and they're only becoming bigger. And it's the same thing with consistency. He's just getting a bigger name for himself, and these meetups are growing. Every event that he throws, it's more and more popular. And it's because he's been consistent for years. I thought this was so cool. And he understood the value of it. And then I put this in contrast. There's somebody in my family. This family member used to throw tech events himself. This family member is actually very similar in a lot of ways to the guy that I met last night. They look similar, funny enough. They talk similar. They're both engineers. And here's the difference. This family member stopped throwing the events. And this family member the family member has a fine job, but wants to get a new job and is having a lot of trouble. Family member is applying to all these different places. People are turning the family member down. He's having a lot of trouble finding a new job that he wants. And I said to him, I think a year or two ago, hey, why don't you start throwing events again? He said, no, I don't want to do that. He was throwing them before, and he was throwing great events. And they were going great for him. They were giving him a name in the city that he was throwing them in. And he said he didn't want to do that again, even though he knows what's up, and it's really not that hard. And that'd be fine. Maybe, maybe he's working on something else with that time. No, he's watching Disney Plus and golfing. And it doesn't actually take, this guy who I had dinner with last night, he only throws an event every month. Every month. He only throws an event every month. And it's a real event, so it takes like some planning. You could do something a lot easier, which is like come to a cafe every week to talk about this specific subject. I used to do that with SEO. I had an SEO meetup group. Sometimes I would teach classes, but most of the time it was a weekly meetup at Gregory's Coffee here in New York City, and it gave me a lot of clout. And I did that for a year, and I met great people. And I was an advisor to this funded startup. It was really crazy what was happening. God, oh man. I stopped that because then I got into blockchain, and then ended up running the biggest blockchain meetup in the world, which gave me, again, insane opportunities. I'll tell this. Oh man, this is one of the craziest stories of my life. But so I ran the biggest blockchain meetup in the world, and I would leverage that, and I would message people, and I'd say, "Hey, your project looks interesting." I would email them. Do you want to talk? Just because I wanted to meet these interesting people and learn from them. And so there's one guy. I won't say who he is because this is insane. And he has this project that looks really cool. It's being talked about a lot in crypto. And the guy says, yeah, come over to my apartment. And I bring my co-founder, and we are expecting to join this guy in like a 1-bedroom apartment in like new construction in Fidai, in the financial district. That's what we are expecting. And we go to this guy's place, and it's at the top of the building, his apartment. It is a 2-story penthouse. The guy's apartment is a 2-story penthouse, and there are only 5 people there. It is him. It is me and my co-founder. It's 6 people. Him, me, and my co-founder, his 2 assistants, and the CTO of Uber, who's a friend of his. And we did not know that the CTO of Uber was going to be there. We didn't know that. And that was the type of clout that we got from doing these events so often, from doing crypto events so often. And when I was doing the SEO events before that, I was getting similar clout. And I think throwing events is so important. This family member was doing it. This family member should be doing it again because it would help him to get amazing jobs, which is what he wants. And instead, he's using his time for relaxation, which is fine. Relaxation is important to an extent. But if you're not getting what you want out of life and you're spending too much time relaxing, some changes should be made. The best I've had it when I was meeting people was when I was doing something that I was passionate about and really believed in. That's the other thing that I wanted to mention. My best times were when I was working on something that really engaged me. And then people really wanted to be in my orbit. And they really wanted to be my friend, and they really wanted to give me stuff and do favors for me. And I've seen that anywhere that I've gone, anywhere around the world. That's something that this family member is not doing, having a side hustle that he really believes in. But that is something that the person last night was doing. I'm doing that right now with this podcast. I really believe in this podcast. I'm really engaged by this podcast. And if you have something and you're doing it and you're really engaged about it and you're telling other people about it, eventually people start seeking you out because people want to surround themselves with other passionate people. I'm going to say that again. People want to surround themselves with other passionate people. I can't stand meeting with somebody who is not passionate about anything. That happens sometimes. I go to events sometimes, I get unlucky, and I talk to somebody who just isn't passionate about, it seems, about anything. That actually, one of the people that I met at this MasterCard event was a second person. Maybe it was the first 2 people, if I'm being fully honest. And they didn't really seem passionate about anything. They didn't seem like they were engaged with life. And I feel bad for them. But I want to surround myself with other people who have an energy like I do. And if you can do that, people come to you and you get all the opportunities in the world. That is an aspect of human nature. That is an aspect of marketing that not enough people understand. And that is why you should work on things that are fun for you. It's so important. I'm going to share some books. Here are 3 marketing/human nature books that I love. They are super valuable. Maybe you've read some of them. Number 1, Influence by Robert Cialdini. This book is constantly recommended by Warren Buffett. Here are 2 things that I got out of it. I learned that the color pink, there's a certain shade of pink, and it's more likely to make people say yes and to like you. I always wear pink because of this lesson. And I learned that if you say because after something, people will be more likely to give you favorable treatment. For example, if you try to cut in line and you're like, I have to cut in line because, and you just say because, and it could be a really dumb reason, that urgency will make people more likely to let you do it. It's really silly, but there have been many studies on both of these things. How to Win Friends and Influence People. This book is a classic. I have read this book 3 times. I think some of the greatest people on the planet right now have read this book a lot. I'm a pretty good listener to people. I got that value from this book. This book inspires you in terms of what's possible by meeting people. I love how it makes you love other people. And it makes you think in terms of what other people want, not what you want. Again, people don't want to be sold to. They want to feel like they're buying. People want to come to you because you want to make yourself wanted so that people come to you, and then those people want you. It's easier for you to get your way if the people are coming to you. So you need to make yourself into somebody who someone is coming to, someone is buying, not someone who is being sold to. I read that book for the first time over 10 years ago. It was a game changer for me. So that's a great book. And then Trust Me, I'm Lying by Ryan Holiday. This is my favorite marketing book. Some of my favorite marketers love Ryan Holiday. I love Ryan Holiday. He's a fantastic author, a tremendous marketer. I learned about how basically chains of lies are created, of exaggerations, like a game of telephone. Media is a game of telephone. Somebody says something, a journalist picks it up, a journalist picks that up, a journalist picks that up, and it keeps getting warped. And also how journalism actually works and how to manipulate the press. Like Ryan Holiday in the book, he manipulated the press, and you hear about that. And the truth is, it still works like that. So these are 3 books that'll make you more. I would say the last book will not make you more like the guy who I met with last night. He doesn't manipulate the press. He does not do that. I want to be clear. He does not do that. But these are great marketing books, and I think it's so important to think about yourself in terms of what people want and not what you want. But also to work on things, paradoxically, then to work on things that you are passionate about, but still to present it in a way that people want. That's why I try to give like a summary before each episode and say, here's what you will get from this episode. And I do that because I want to make it, this is what you will get. It's about you, the listener, the person who is listening to me right now. It is about you. And I thank you so much for listening, because that's what it's about. It's about you. I'm giving, and I am grateful that you are listening. And if you're getting value from my podcast, I am grateful for that. All right, I'm going to wrap this up. We're on episode 22 of The Edward Show. Thank you so much for listening. You know when I'm going to talk to you. You already know when I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to talk to you tomorrow. Bye.